When a new father begins hearing a woman's voice through his baby monitor, everyone tells him he's exhausted, stressed, or imagining things. The voice comments on his daughter, sings lullabies, and seems to watch the baby constantly. But when he tries to record it or show others, there's nothing there. No evidence, no proof, just a man apparently losing his mind. Except he's not. What begins as a terrifying mystery becomes something far more complex, a story about trust, intuition, and a mother's love that refused to end, even after death. This is the story of Rachel Morrison, who died trying to save her infant daughter in a house fire 40 years ago, and the family who finally helped her find peace. It's about the signs we dismiss because they don't make logical sense, and the price we pay when we stop trusting our own experiences. Sometimes the voices we hear are real, even when no one else believes us. Sometimes we should trust ourselves over what seems rational. Subscribe for more psychological mysteries that explore the moments when we should have known, but didn't. I should have known when the baby monitor picked up a voice, but I didn't. There's something uniquely terrifying about hearing a voice where there shouldn't be one. Especially when that voice is coming through your baby monitor at 3 in the morning, whispering words you can't quite understand. I should have known something was wrong the first time it happened. I should have investigated immediately, trusted my instincts, done something. But I didn't. I told myself it was interference from a neighbor's device, or radio signals crossing wires, or any of a dozen rational explanations that seemed safer than the truth. My daughter Emma was 6 months old when we bought the new monitor. Our old one had been basic, just audio with a simple speaker and receiver. But this new one was state-of-the-art, with video, night vision, two-way communication, and even sensors that track room temperature and humidity. My wife Sarah had insisted on it after reading reviews online. "We need to see her," she had said, "not just hear her." I had agreed, though privately I thought it was overkill. But Sarah was a first-time mother, anxious about everything, and if a fancy monitor gave her peace of mind, it was worth the expense. We set it up in Emma's nursery, positioning the camera to give us a perfect view of her crib. The image quality was remarkable. Even in complete darkness, we could see every detail of her face, watch the gentle rise and fall of her breathing. For the first week, everything was perfect. Emma slept better than she had in months, and we finally got some rest ourselves. Then came the night I heard the voice. It was subtle at first, barely audible beneath the white noise machine we kept running in Emma's room. A whisper, soft and indistinct, like someone speaking just outside the range of clear hearing. I was half asleep when I first noticed it, my brain trying to decide whether the sound was real or part of a dream. I reached for the monitor on my nightstand and turned up the volume. The whisper continued, rising and falling in a rhythm that almost sounded like conversation. But Emma was alone in her room. I checked the video feed. She was sleeping peacefully, her tiny fists curled near her face. Nothing in the room had moved. Nothing looked out of place. I watched the monitor for several minutes, listening to that strange whisper threading through the white noise. Sarah stirred beside me, but didn't wake. I considered waking her, showing her what I was hearing, but what would I say? That there was a voice on the monitor? She would ask me what it was saying, and I had no answer. The sounds were too indistinct, too layered beneath the white noise to make out individual words. I convinced myself it was interference. We lived in a suburban neighborhood with houses close together. Someone probably had a baby monitor on the same frequency. Their conversations were bleeding into our feed. It made sense. It was logical. It was nothing to worry about. I turned down the volume and went back to sleep. But the next night, it happened again. This time, I was more alert, more focused on trying to understand what I was hearing. The whisper was definitely a voice, not static, not interference, but someone speaking. And it seemed to be coming from inside Emma's room, not from a neighboring house. I grabbed my phone and opened the monitor's app, which gave me additional controls and a clearer image. I zoomed in on different corners of the nursery, looking for anything unusual. The room was exactly as we had left it. Soft yellow walls decorated with hand-painted clouds. A mobile of stuffed animals hanging above the crib. A rocking chair in the corner where Sarah spent hours nursing Emma. Everything was normal, except for the voice. I put in earbuds and listened more carefully, trying to filter out the white noise and focus on the whisper. And then I heard it, clear as day, just for a moment. "She's beautiful." My blood ran cold. Someone had said Emma was beautiful. Someone was in her room, or watching her room, or somehow communicating through our monitor. I was out of bed and down the hall before I fully processed what I was doing. I threw open Emma's door, my heart hammering, ready to confront whoever had invaded our home. The nursery was empty. Emma slept undisturbed in her crib. The camera sat on its shelf, its small LED glowing green. No one was there. No one had ever been there. I spent about 20 minutes up there, mentally mapping out where could put things, checking that the floorboards were solid, making sure there were no signs of leaks or pest damage. Everything seemed fine, ordinary, exactly what you'd expect from an old attic. I was about to leave when I noticed something odd. Near the far wall, beneath the small window, the floorboards looked different, newer somehow. The wood was the same, but the nails holding them down were shinier, less corroded than the others. Someone had pulled up these boards and replaced them. Recently, I knelt down and examined them more closely. There were 6 boards in total, each about 4 feet long, forming a rough rectangle. The gaps between them were slightly wider than the gaps between the other floorboards, as if whoever had replaced them hadn't quite fitted them perfectly. I tried to pry one up with my fingers, but it wouldn't budge. I'd need tools. A crowbar maybe, or a hammer and chisel. Part of me wanted to go get tools immediately and see what was under those boards. But another part, the rational, sensible part, told me I was being ridiculous. So someone had replaced a few floorboards. So what? Maybe there had been water damage that needed repair. Maybe the previous owners had stored something heavy up here, and the boards had cracked. There were a dozen innocent explanations. I climbed back down and went about my day, unpacking boxes, arranging furniture, trying to make the house feel like mine. But I kept thinking about those floorboards. And I kept thinking about Mr. Hendrick's question. That evening, I saw him in his backyard watering his garden. I walked over to the fence, intending to ask him casually if he knew anything about repairs to my attic. But before I could speak, he looked up and smiled, that same smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Did you go up there?" he asked. Not, "Did you go up to the attic?" or "Did you check out your storage space?" Just, "Did you go up there?" As if he already knew what I'd been doing. As if he'd been waiting for this conversation. "Yeah," I said slowly. "I went up this morning. Just scoping it out for storage. Find anything interesting?" His tone was light, conversational, but his grip on the garden hose had tightened. I could see his knuckles turning white. "Just some old junk the previous owners left behind," I said, watching his reaction. Carefully. "Why? Is there something I should be looking for?" My hands shook as I recorded, barely breathing, terrified the sound would stop before I captured it. The voice went on for nearly 30 seconds, speaking in that casual, intimate way people do when they're admiring a baby. Then it faded, dissolving back into white noise. When Sarah came back to bed, I played her the recording immediately. She listened with a frown, then played again, turning up the volume on my phone. "I hear the white noise," she said slowly, "and maybe some kind of interference, but I don't hear words, James. I don't hear anyone speaking." "What?" I grabbed the phone and played it back myself. She was right. On my recording, there was nothing but static and ambient sound. No voice. No words. Nothing that sounded even remotely like speech. "That's impossible," I said. "I just recorded it." I heard her say Emma has my eyes, that she's growing fast. Her? Sarah interrupted. "You said the voice is a woman." I nodded, confused by her tone. "You heard a woman's voice talking about our daughter, and you're just telling me now." Sarah's face had gone pale. "James, you need to see a doctor. This isn't normal. You're hearing things that aren't there, and now you're saying they're recordings that don't exist. This could be serious." "I'm not crazy," I said, but the words sounded hollow even to me. Because what was the alternative? That I was hearing a voice no one else could hear, that left no trace on any recording device? That did sound crazy. That sounded like I was losing my mind. Sarah made me promise to see our family doctor, and I agreed. But I also decided to do my own investigation. I researched baby monitor hacking, read stories about people who had discovered strangers watching their children through compromised cameras. It was more common than I had realized. Hackers could access unsecured monitors, watch families in their homes, even speak through the two-way audio feature. The thought made me sick, but it also gave me hope. Because if someone was hacking our monitor, that meant I wasn't crazy. It meant the voice was real. I changed all our passwords, enabled every security feature the monitor offered, and set up additional encryption on our home network. For 2 weeks after I secured the monitor, there was silence. No voices, no whispers, nothing unusual. I started to relax, convinced that I had solved the problem. Someone had been hacking our system, and now they couldn't. Simple. Logical. Case closed. Sarah stopped looking at me with that worried expression. I canceled the doctor's appointment I had scheduled. Life returned to normal. Then Emma got sick. Nothing serious, just a cold that made her congested and fussy. She had trouble sleeping, waking every few hours, crying, and uncomfortable. Sarah and I took turns going to her room, holding her, trying to soothe her back to sleep. It was on the 3rd night of this exhausting routine that I heard the voice again. I was in Emma's room, rocking her in my arms, when I heard it coming from the monitor's speaker. Not a whisper this time. A lullaby. Someone was singing to my daughter through the baby monitor. The voice was soft and melodic, singing a song I didn't recognize. Old-fashioned words about stars and dreams and sleeping through the night. Emma quieted in my arms, her crying subsiding, her body relaxing against my chest. She was responding to the voice, finding comfort in it. I stood frozen, not knowing what to do. Part of me wanted to shout at the monitor, demand that whoever was there identify themselves. But Emma was finally calm, finally peaceful. And something about the voice, despite how wrong this all was, felt gentle. Not threatening, not cruel, just sad. The song ended and the voice spoke. "You're doing a good job," it said, and there was no mistaking the words this time. They were crystal clear, directed at me. "She's lucky to have you." "Who are you?" I whispered, not sure if the monitor would pick up my voice. "How are you doing this?" Silence. Just the hum of the white noise machine. Emma had fallen asleep in my arms, her breathing deep and regular. I laid her back in her crib and stood there, staring at the monitor's camera. Its green LED blinked steadily. I went back to my bedroom and pulled out my laptop, accessing the monitor's security logs. According to the system, no one had accessed the device remotely. No unauthorized logins. No breaches. Nothing that would explain a voice speaking through the speaker. I became obsessed. I spent hours researching paranormal activity, electronic voice phenomena, anything that might explain a voice that could speak through technology but leave no digital trace. I found forums full of people reporting similar experiences, voices through baby monitors, radios, even smart speakers. Some claimed they were spirits. Others insisted it was some kind of quantum interference we didn't understand. Most were dismissed as hoaxes or delusions. I didn't know what to believe. I only knew that I kept hearing the voice, and it kept talking about Emma. It would comment on her growth, her habits, the way she smiled when Sarah played with her. It seemed to watch her constantly, noting details that only someone observing her closely would know. "She's starting to recognize faces now," the voice said one night. "Soon she'll know you're her father, that you're safe." Another time, "She didn't like the sweet potatoes today. Maybe try carrots tomorrow." The voice was always gentle, always observant, always focused on Emma. It never threatened, never demanded anything. It just watched and spoke. I stopped trying to record it. I had learned that lesson. The voice existed in some space that technology couldn't capture, that only I seemed able to hear. Sarah remained convinced I was experiencing some kind of breakdown, stress-induced hallucinations brought on by sleep deprivation and new parent anxiety. She suggested therapy. I went, if only to keep the peace. The therapist was kind but skeptical, suggesting much the same thing Sarah had, that I was manifesting anxiety about fatherhood through auditory hallucinations. He prescribed medication that I pretended to take, but actually flushed down the toilet, because I knew deep in my bones that the voice was real, and I was determined to figure out who it belonged to. I started researching the history of our house. We had bought it from an elderly couple who were downsizing, but before them, the property records showed a succession of families going back decades. I searched for anything unusual, deaths, tragedies, anything that might explain a lingering presence. What I found was buried in a local newspaper archive from 1983. A brief article about a house fire on our street. A young mother had died trying to save her infant daughter from the flames. Both had perished. The address matched our house. The article included a photo, a young woman with dark hair and kind eyes, holding a baby wrapped in a blanket. The caption identified her as Rachel Morrison, age 26, and her daughter Jennifer, 7 months old. I stared at that photo for a long time, my hands trembling. 7 months old. Emma was 7 months old now. I showed the article to Sarah that evening, explaining my theory as carefully as I could. A mother who had died trying to save her child might have unfinished business. Might be drawn to another mother and child living in the same house. Might want to watch over them, protect them, make sure they didn't suffer the same fate. Sarah listened patiently, then closed my laptop. "James, this has to stop," she said, and her voice was firm in a way I had never heard before. "You're spiraling. You found a tragic story from 40 years ago, and now you're building an entire delusion around it. This woman, Rachel, she's gone. She died a long time ago. She's not haunting our baby monitor." "Then how do you explain the voice?" I demanded. "I explain it by saying you need help," Sarah said. "Real help. Not therapy you're pretending to take seriously. Not medication you're not actually taking. Yes, I found the pills in the trash. You need to admit that something is wrong and get proper treatment." We fought that night. Really fought, in a way we never had before. Sarah threatened to take Emma and stay with her mother if I didn't get help. I accused her of not believing me, of dismissing what I was experiencing instead of supporting me. We both said things we regretted. In the end, I agreed to be more serious about treatment, to actually take the medication, to be honest with the therapist, to accept that maybe I was experiencing something neurological rather than paranormal. But I also made Sarah agree to something. I wanted to try to communicate with the voice, to set up a situation where I could ask direct questions and see if it would respond. If it did, if I could prove its existence beyond my own hearing, then we would know I wasn't delusional. And if it didn't, if nothing happened, I would accept that I needed serious medical intervention. Sarah agreed, though I could see the resignation in her eyes. She thought she was humoring a sick man, but she loved me enough to try. We set up the experiment on a Saturday night. Sarah agreed to stay in Emma's room with me, both of us watching the monitor, both of us listening. I would speak to the voice, ask it questions, and we would see what happened. Emma was asleep in her crib, peaceful and oblivious. Sarah sat in the rocking chair, arms crossed, her expression a mixture of concern and skepticism. I stood near the monitor, feeling foolish, but determined. "Rachel," I said, speaking to the empty room. "If that's who you are, if you're the one who's been speaking to me, please respond. Show us that you're here." Silence. Just the white noise machine and Emma's breathing. Sarah gave me a look that said, "I told you so," without words. "Please," I continued. "I know you died here. I know you lost your daughter. I know that pain is still with you. But I need Sarah to hear you too. I need her to understand that I'm not crazy, that you're real." More silence. Minutes passed. I was starting to feel like a complete fool, like I had just proven Sarah's point better than she ever could have. And then the temperature in the room dropped. Not dramatically, not like in horror movies, but noticeably. Both Sarah and I felt it at the same time. She pulled her cardigan tighter, frowning. "Did the heat turn off?" she asked. Before I could answer, the monitor crackled. Not with white noise or interference, but with a clear, distinct sound. A breath. Then words. I'm here. Sarah's eyes went wide. She heard it. She actually heard it. I saw the moment of recognition on her face, the shift from skepticism to shock. Oh my God, she whispered. James, I heard that. The voice continued, stronger now, as if encouraged by Sarah's acknowledgement. I've been here since the fire. I couldn't leave. I couldn't rest. My baby died in my arms and I couldn't save her and I can't let go. Sarah was crying now, one hand over her mouth. I moved closer to the monitor, my heart racing. Rachel, we want to help you, I said. Tell us what you need. I need to know she's safe, the voice said, and there was such raw pain in those words that it hurt to hear. I need to watch over her. I need to make sure that what happened to Jennifer doesn't happen to Emma. We talked with Rachel for over an hour that night. She told us about the fire, how it had started from faulty wiring in the walls. How she had tried to reach Jennifer's nursery, but the smoke was too thick, the heat too intense. How she had died mere feet away from her daughter's room, knowing she had failed. For 40 years, she had been trapped in that space, reliving her final moments, drowning in guilt and grief. Until we moved in with Emma. A new baby, a new chance. She had been drawn to Emma immediately, watching her through the monitor, because it was the only way she could see her, interact with her world. She had meant no harm. She only wanted to help, to protect, to make sure another mother didn't lose a child the way she had. Sarah was remarkably calm considering we were having a conversation with a ghost. Her maternal instincts had kicked in, not just for Emma, but for Rachel too, a mother who had lost her child in the most horrific way possible. You didn't fail, Sarah told her gently. What happened to Jennifer wasn't your fault. It was an accident. A terrible, tragic accident. I should have known, Rachel's voice whispered. There were signs. The lights flickering, the outlets that sparked. I should have had it checked. I should have been more careful. I should have known. Those words hit me hard. I should have known. The same words I had been thinking since this all started. I should have known the voice was real. I should have trusted my instincts instead of doubting myself. Rachel had spent 40 years trapped in the regret of not knowing, not acting on the signs she had missed. We spent weeks helping Rachel find peace. We had the house's electrical system completely rewired, eliminating the danger that had killed her and Jennifer. We held a small memorial service in the backyard, just the three of us, and a priest Sarah found who was willing to bless the space without asking too many questions. We spoke about Rachel and Jennifer, honoring their memory, acknowledging their lives and their loss. Gradually, the voice became less frequent. Rachel would check in occasionally, a soft greeting through the monitor, but the desperate need to constantly watch over Emma had faded. She was letting go, bit by bit, trusting that Emma was safe, that Sarah and I would protect her in the ways Rachel hadn't been able to protect Jennifer. One night, about 2 months after we first spoke with Rachel directly, she came through the monitor one last time. Her voice was different, lighter, somehow. Less burdened. I can see her now, Rachel said, and I knew immediately she meant Jennifer. She's here waiting for me. I can finally go to her. Thank you, Sarah said, tears streaming down her face. Thank you for watching over Emma. Thank you for caring. Thank you for helping me remember that I was a good mother, Rachel replied. That I loved my daughter, even though I couldn't save her. Thank you for releasing me from the guilt. The monitor went silent after that. No more voices, no more whispers, no more late-night lullabies. Just the normal sounds of a baby sleeping, of a house settling, of a family living. Looking back now, I realize how close I came to dismissing the most important thing, the truth of my own experience. I almost let everyone convince me I was crazy. I almost took medication to suppress what I was hearing instead of investigating it. I almost ignored the signs because they didn't make sense, because they couldn't be explained by logic or science or rational thought. Rachel had said she should have known about the electrical problems. But I should have known too. I should have trusted myself when something felt wrong, even when everyone around me insisted it was nothing. The baby monitor picking up a voice was my warning sign. It was telling me to pay attention, to investigate, to trust my instincts over conventional explanations. And when I finally did, When I stopped trying to rationalize away what I was experiencing, I discovered something real. Something that needed to be addressed. Something that ultimately helped not just me and my family, but a soul that had been trapped in torment for 4 decades. Emma is 3 years old now. We still live in the same house, though we've made many changes to it. The nursery is now her big girl room, filled with toys and books and drawings she's made. We've never heard Rachel's voice again, but sometimes I feel a presence, warm and protective, like someone watching over us with love rather than desperation. Sarah and I are stronger for what we went through. We learned to trust each other's experiences, even when they seem impossible. We learned that some things in this world don't have easy explanations, and that's okay. We don't need to understand everything. We just need to pay attention and respond with compassion. So here's what I want you to take from this. If something feels wrong, if you experience something that doesn't make sense, don't automatically assume you're crazy. Don't let others convince you to ignore your instincts. Investigate. Ask questions. Seek the truth, even if it seems impossible. Because sometimes the voices we hear are real, even if no one else can hear them. Sometimes the signs we notice are genuine warnings, even if we can't explain them. Sometimes we should trust ourselves over what seems logical or rational. I should have known when the baby monitor picked up a voice, and eventually I did know. I learned to trust myself, and that made all the difference. If you found this story meaningful, if it made you think about the instincts you might be dismissing in your own life, subscribe to Should Have Known Stories. Hit that like button to share Rachel's story with others who might need to hear it. And watch our next video where we explore another moment when someone should have known, but almost didn't. Until then, trust yourself. Pay attention to the signs. And never stop investigating what feels wrong, even when everyone says you're imagining things.